The U.S. Bureau of Reclamation projects in 2 years' time, Lake Mead may be set to be at its shallowest levels in recorded history.
The Bureau released its 2- and 5-year projections earlier this year, showing levels hovering at about 1,000 feet.
Lake Mead's water levels have been climbing at a pace almost no one predicted, reversing years of decline and dry warnings. But what's behind this surprising surge? And why are scientists uneasy about it? Could a natural recovery mask a deeper, hidden danger lurking beneath the surface? This story is more than just water numbers rising. It challenges everything we thought we knew about this vital reservoir's future. As Lake Mead fills again, an eerie and unexpected threat has appeared, raising urgent questions about the delicate balance between nature and human impact. Rapid rise in Lake Mead's water. Lake Mead, long known for its dwindling water levels, has experienced a stunning reversal. After years of decline driven by severe drought and increasing demand, the reservoir's water levels have surged unexpectedly. In 2023, measurements showed the lake rising by over 20 feet, a dramatic shift far beyond the pessimistic projections many experts had made. This sudden increase has caught the attention of scientists and resource managers alike, prompting urgent questions about what's driving this sudden turnaround. This rise isn't just a statistical anomaly, but a tangible change visible across Lake Mead's vast surface that covers 247 square miles. The water now reaches higher into previously parched shorelines, reopening areas closed off for years. Boating routes once unnavigable due to low levels are beginning to reopen, signaling a renewed vitality in this critical water source. However, with this rapid rise has come unexpected complications, sparking concerns over the stability of the lake's delicate balance. Despite the encouraging numbers, Lake Mead remains significantly below capacity, sitting roughly 160 feet from being full. This gap between current levels and full capacity underscores how much recovery is still needed and how fragile this resurgence is. The seemingly good news masks a more complex scenario beneath the surface, one involving environmental shifts and unseen risks that scientists are still unraveling. What appears as a hopeful recovery may be hiding deeper, less obvious challenges. Adding to this complexity is the fact that Lake Mead is part of a broader system, receiving inflows from Lake Powell and the Colorado River. Changes upstream ripple through the entire basin, affecting the volume of water that finally pools in the reservoir. Lake Powell, for instance, has also seen a significant rise, with its own water levels increasing by more than 50 feet in the same period. Together, these shifts represent a broader hydrological event, not just isolated to Lake Mead alone. What makes this increase extraordinary is how unexpected it was. Early predictions for 2023 from the United States Bureau of Reclamation forecasted a drop of about 20 feet in Lake Mead's levels. Instead, the data recorded defied these expectations in a way few anticipated. This highlights the challenge of forecasting water availability in an era of increasing climate variability and complexity in interconnected water systems. Though this water level rise provides momentary relief to drought-stricken regions, it also raises a cautionary flag. Scientists are wary about what these rapid changes might mean for the long-term health of the reservoir and the ecosystem it supports. Lake Mead's water balance has been delicately maintained for decades, and sudden fluctuations can introduce stress on infrastructure and natural habitats alike. The consequences could ripple far beyond the lake's shorelines. Moreover, the rising water levels trigger operational challenges for water managers who must adapt to this new reality. Structures like pumps and docks, designed during low water phases, may no longer meet current conditions. This situation demands rapid adjustments and strategic planning to make sure the lake's resources are managed effectively and sustainably. At the same time, these changes complicate the efforts to maintain safety and accessibility along the reservoir. Lake Mead's past struggles set the stage to understand how deep the crisis went before this rise, and why recent years have been so alarming. Historical low levels and drought impact. For much of the last decade, Lake Mead was a stark symbol of drought and water scarcity in the American Southwest. From 2016 to 2022, the reservoir hit historic lows, with its water levels dropping to just over 26% of capacity by mid-2022.
The year that Lake Mead is supposed to hit lowest water levels ever recorded. Different shades of rock indicating the levels of the historic lake.
This drastic decline was the result of prolonged drought conditions punctuated by increasing water demands from a growing population and agricultural needs across multiple states. At its lowest, the lake reached nearly 9,300 million acre-feet, a level that had not been seen before. These shrinking water levels prompted real consequences, including restrictions on water use and the shuttering of boat passageways that once bustled with activity. The retreating shoreline exposed dry lake bed and stressed fish and wildlife, reminding observers of nature's fragility amid human pressures. Water managers were forced into reactive strategies, such as activating low-level pumps designed to access water still deep underwater, but beyond traditional reach. These efforts were crucial stopgap measures to prevent further drops from triggering severe restrictions. This perilous tendency was mainly led by unceasing drought, together with climate change making impacts very harsh and dry spells longer and hotter. The Colorado River basin that fills Lake Mead went through one of the driest 20-year periods ever recorded. The long-run dry conditions greatly strained and even challenged the old perception of water availability in the area. Besides, the booming population in the region significantly increased water consumption, thus putting more pressure on the already limited resource. The year July 2016 saw the lowest level in water volume history for Lake Mead, which was the turning point of the warning provided by the previous pressures. The government officials realized that if the situation continued, then the downstream users would have to reduce their water intake, and the affected ones would be the cities, farmland, and the ecosystem. Water planners and policymakers were left to choose between sharing the little water that was left and keeping decade-long supplies. The crisis made the disagreement louder, and the need for conservation and new technology even more urgent. Water scarcity was the mother of new ideas. Through legal agreements among the western states, they planned water sharing in such a way that the cutoff was fair. Tucson, Arizona, for instance, was one of the cities that participated in the water issuing header allocation experiment, thereby creating a precedent of taking community responsibility. Nevada was thinking of new laws that would give water authorities the power to control the supply of water for residential purposes, considering that the problem of water scarcity had been recognized as one requiring radical solutions. The above measures were indeed a milestone, but they also carried the danger of inciting political and social friction. The curse of a drought, declared since 2021, was still reminding everyone about the situation's severity, which already persisted despite the very limited attempts to reverse the situation. Low readings in May 2022 especially emphasized that at that point, the Lake Mead was very far from recovery. This episode was very clearly telling that both the nature and human beings had to put up with unprecedented and very difficult conditions, and there were few, if any, solutions out of the crisis. If nothing was done, the continuous drop would cast a shadow over the survival of millions of people depending on the reservoir for their water. Realizing this worst state can help you understand better the recent increase in water levels. The increase did not come about just like that. It was a consequence of years of troubles, battles over water conservation, and climate uncertainty. The old low levels of the lake are a good starting point for understanding just how big the rise is. But the situation is such that the challenges regarding water in the basin are still complex and have not been completely solved. Snowpack and climatic conditions formed the unseen drivers of this surprising water resurgence. The role of snowpack and climate conditions. At the heart of Lake Mead's rapid rise lies an extraordinary natural phenomenon, an unusually large snowpack in the Rocky Mountains earlier this year. Snowpack, the accumulation of winter snow, acts as a reservoir itself, slowly melting to feed rivers, including the Colorado River that supplies Lake Mead.
The temperatures warm up across the west. All eyes remain on the water levels.
Plenty of snowpack to add to the Colorado River as well.
The winter of 2022 to 2023 produced record-setting snow levels, exceeding typical seasonal amounts and replenishing water supplies after years of shortage. This surge in snow meltwater became the primary driver of the unexpected influx. Snowpack fluctuates year to year, often influenced by atmospheric patterns and climate cycles, but the scale of this snowfall stood out as exceptional. As temperatures warmed, the slow release of meltwater ensured an extended flow downstream, gradually refilling rivers and reservoirs. In many places, stream flow forecasts sharply increased, signaling more water headed into Lake Mead than anyone had anticipated. This natural input disrupted previously bleak forecasts of declining water supplies. However, this phenomenon must be understood within the broader context of climate variability. While the high snowpack was a boon, the American Southwest continues to grapple with rising temperatures and unpredictable precipitation patterns. These shifts complicate reliance on such natural occurrences as a dependable water source, since a single generous snow year cannot erase prolonged drought effects. It shows the fragile balance between periodic replenishment and enduring scarcity. In addition to snowpack, other climatic factors influenced Lake Mead's recovery. Variable rainfall patterns and cooler spring temperatures helped moderate evaporation rates that often accelerate water loss in reservoirs. Climate scientists also point to shifting jet streams and weather systems that favored precipitation in the upper Colorado River basin during critical periods. These combined effects contributed to greater inflows over recent months. Yet, even with these conditions, Lake Mead's rise was surprising enough to prompt the Bureau of Reclamation to reevaluate its predictions. Their updated 24-month outlook shifted dramatically from expected declines to sharp gains, reflecting the impact of this snow-driven water surge. This acknowledged the dynamic and sometimes unpredictable nature of climate's effect on water resources, where data must constantly adjust to rapidly changing variables. While the abundant snowpack offered a glimpse of hope, it also highlighted the enormous dependence on natural conditions that are becoming increasingly erratic. No long-term water solution can rely solely on chance weather events, no matter how beneficial they may be. The urgency to integrate climatic realities into water management strategies has never been clearer. As these environmental patterns reveal their influence, human efforts to control and conserve water come sharply into focus, shaping the next chapter of this unfolding story. Water management and conservation efforts. As Lake Mead's water levels plummeted over the past decade, water managers faced unprecedented challenges. In response, a series of innovative conservation measures and infrastructure adjustments were implemented to protect the reservoir and the millions dependent on its supply. One key strategy involved the installation of low-level pumps in 2020.
Some troubling images from Lake Mead. For years, and the Water Authority responded by developing a new low-lake pumping station in 2020.
Designed to access water still submerged, but previously unreachable due to declining lake levels. These pumps began operating in 2022 as a critical safeguard against losing access to essential water reserves. Alongside technological solutions, regional water authorities embraced demand management strategies to curb consumption. Cities like Tucson, Arizona, made groundbreaking decisions to forego their full water allotments from Lake Mead, voluntarily reducing usage by tens of thousands of acre-feet annually. This act of sacrifice was not only a response to scarcity, but also set an important precedent for collaborative water stewardship in a time of crisis. The city received compensation through federal programs aimed at drought relief, incentivizing conservation while easing economic impacts. Nevada went ahead with legal reforms that gave power to the water managers to more closely monitor and control the amount of water used for residential purposes. The regulations proposed would imply that the agencies would be allowed to limit the water use for houses up to 1.5 acres per year, which is about 163,000 gallons. These measures would be the first in the United States and would also signify an increasing acceptance of stricter water rules in scarcity situations. Ignoring these measures would be potentially controversial, but on the other hand, it would emerge as a manifestation of the fact that the individual needs are being balanced with the wider ecosystem needs. Water management agencies were working together from different states, not only in the West, through updated agreements based on the 1922 Colorado River Compact. The compacts are now taking into account new hydrological findings and are aiming to fairly distribute the cutback waters among Arizona, California, Nevada, and other states in the basin. Negotiations are often difficult because of the competing interests of agriculture, urban areas, and tribal lands. However, there is a common understanding that without collaboration, no area will be able to completely guarantee its water supply. The initiatives aimed at increasing the inflow to Lake Mead found a lucky break as a result of the water redirection experiments being carried out. The Colorado River water was diverted in various ways so as to increase the reservoir's reserves, with the ultimate goal of speeding up recovery that is beyond what nature could provide. The initial outcomes indicated a significant rise in water levels that confirmed the viability of such actions. Nevertheless, these activities necessitate continuous observation to prevent unexpected negative effects on the ecology downstream. All these activities come in a context of changing climate, which makes water management even more difficult. The officials have to mediate between the current operational needs and the future sustainability, usually running the risk of making the wrong choice. The issue gets more complicated because of the increased evaporation that comes with the warmer climate, which has the potential to nullify the effects of the conservation practices and natural inflows. Even though the water management has advanced a lot technologically, the struggle between preserving the water and allowing it to support recreation and nature continues. The water levels in the lake that are of interest to boaters, fishermen, and animal rights activists are constantly fluctuating and thus affecting habitats and access points. It is a very challenging task to come up with policies that are complex, yet incorporate scientific input and community values while aligning with the future. One of the reasons for the continuous success of the water management system is the agency's never-ending adaptation, which constantly transforms the tools and strategies. Data-assisted approaches, constant monitoring of the situation, and the creation of flexible political structures are slowly becoming essential for Lake Mead's management in the future. This entire scenario is indicative of the different stakeholders' commitment to protecting one of the West's major resources during a very tough period in history. This delicate balancing act influences not only Lake Mead itself, but the wider region dependent on its waters, creating ripple effects that stretch well beyond the reservoir's shores. Ripple effects on surrounding regions. The rising water levels at Lake Mead have sent waves of change through the surrounding region, reshaping social, economic, and political landscapes. Las Vegas, the largest urban neighbor, directly feels these shifts as water availability influences growth, tourism, and quality of life. The city's future planning increasingly integrates water scarcity scenarios, recognizing that the reservoir's health is intricately tied to its own sustainability. With temperatures regularly nearing 100 degrees Fahrenheit during spring and summer, water demand remains intense. Arizona has emerged as a focal point for water policy innovation and conservation leadership. The state's efforts to reduce withdrawals reflect a new recognition of limits imposed by nature. However, Arizona also must balance the needs of its expanding population with agricultural demands, creating ongoing negotiation challenges. The commitment by cities like Tucson to voluntarily cut water use for several years is a significant gesture that echoes throughout the basin, encouraging similar actions elsewhere. Nevada's potential legislation to curb residential water use, if enacted, would mark a national first, signaling a willingness to implement strict regulatory measures in response to prolonged drought. This move has garnered both support and skepticism among residents, but underscores the urgency of addressing water scarcity comprehensively. With Southern Nevada Water Authority empowered to manage allocations more aggressively, local governments prepare for a future of tighter controls over consumption habits. Beyond state lines, the basin states collectively face the challenge of updating and enforcing the Colorado River Compact before its 2026 expiration. The Compact's original assumptions are now outdated, requiring revisions to reflect modern hydrology and usage patterns. This legal renegotiation is complicated by divergent interests and historical grievances, making consensus elusive. The federal government's recent proposals to mitigate worst-case scenarios, including plans to bypass the Glen Canyon Dam, add further complexity to negotiations. The Glen Canyon Dam bypass plan, while intended to preserve power generation and improve river health, carries significant implications for water distribution and ecosystem restoration. Proponents argue it could help restore more natural river flows, but critics worry about economic and logistical challenges. This proposal epitomizes the difficult choices facing policymakers caught between environmental goals and infrastructure realities within a limited water system. Meanwhile, tensions over water rights in California's arid agricultural regions persist, illustrating the deep-rooted conflicts over this vital resource. Desert farmers fiercely defend their access to water, while urban areas and environmental groups press for reductions. This struggle reveals the intricate web of competing interests entwined with Colorado River water and echoes throughout the basin's social fabric. The complex interplay of environmental factors, legal frameworks, and human needs means that every action taken regarding Lake Mead's waters.
For the past couple of months, we've reported on the receding water levels at the lake and the impact it has on people trying to make a splash out there.
Affects multiple stakeholders. Water decisions are never isolated. They cascade through communities, economies, and ecosystems with profound consequences. This interconnectedness heightens both the stakes and the urgency to find collaborative paths forward. The promise of renewed supply awakens new concerns and forces a reckoning with unseen environmental consequences. Emerging environmental threats. As Lake Mead's waters rise, an unexpected and troubling phenomenon has begun to surface beneath the calm exterior. With the increase in water levels uncovering previously exposed areas, scientists have discovered environmental hazards that were long hidden. Among these is the reemergence of hazardous materials and toxic residues left behind during decades of low water levels, posing new risks to the ecosystem and human health. This resurgence challenges the notion that rising water alone signals a return to normalcy. One of the most alarming discoveries involves the appearance of abandoned toxic sites along the lake's receding shoreline. These include old mining operations and chemical deposits that, when submerged or dry, seemed contained but now are at risk of leaching harmful substances into the water. The return of water flooding these sites raises fears about contamination spreading through the reservoir, potentially affecting drinking water sources and wildlife habitats. Authorities face an urgent challenge in monitoring and mitigating these risks. The shifting water levels are also disturbing sediments long settled on the lakebed. These sediments may carry heavy metals and other pollutants, which can be remobilized by new currents and rising waters. This process threatens to disrupt aquatic ecosystems that rely on stable conditions and could adversely impact fish populations critical to both the environment and local economies. The delicate balance of Lake Mead's biodiversity is now under stress from these unforeseen contaminants. Aside from the chemical issues, the rising water levels have also exposed some of the past structures and remnants of human activities. Old foundations, debris, and equipment that were once hidden under the land are now seen to be dangerous for navigation and wildlife, as they are just below the water surface. The presence of such debris makes recreation difficult, and, consequently, those in charge of boat traffic and public safety will have to be constantly on the lookout. These physical threats reflect the lake's turbulent history and demonstrate the long-term consequences of human activities. Invasive species are another related issue that is becoming increasingly concerning. The warmer waters and changed ecosystems could very well spread the non-native plants and animals that take over the local ones. These invaders may lower the quality of the habitat and the number of different species in Lake Mead's environment, thus causing a ripple effect that spreads throughout the lake's interconnected ecosystem. Controlling the invasive species in the changing water conditions complicates the already difficult task of conservation. The scientists and the environmental agencies are on the hurry and are trying to figure out the full extent of the emerging threats, and they are aware that responses have to be both timely and adaptive. Their work involves a lot of sampling, risk assessments, and collaborations with the federal and state authorities. The Balancing Act not only includes water quantity preservation, but also quality safeguarding, all under the pressure of tight budgets and competing demands. The environmentalism warnings from the revelations are very loud and clear. The mineralized water of Lake Mead is reviving, but it is not a pure good news story. It forces the water managers and the policymakers to change their mindset from merely restoring water level to looking for other ways of using water, while the recovery is emphasizing the unseen hazards that go along with it. The uncertainties uncovered beneath the surface lead naturally to a broader conversation about the scientific complexities involved in managing and predicting Lake Mead's future. Scientific uncertainty and risks ahead. The dramatic rise in Lake Mead's water levels has forced scientists and water managers to reconsider long-held assumptions about the reservoir's behavior and future. Predicting water availability has never been straightforward, but recent events have underscored just how fragile and complex these forecasts can be. Climate variability, human interventions, and natural feedback loops combine in ways that challenge existing models and demand flexible, evolving strategies. Despite the surge in water, Lake Mead remains far below full capacity, more than 160 feet from the brink. And similarly, Lake Powell upstream holds substantial deficits. This means the region cannot count on sustained abundance. Scientists caution against complacency, emphasizing that one wet year or season does not erase decades of drying and overuse. The risks of recurring droughts and water shortages remain pressing and unresolved. One major source of uncertainty stems from the intricate and sometimes flawed hydrological data underlying water management. Much of the original Colorado River Compact and related agreements were based on overestimates of river flows taken during unusually wet decades. Modern science has revealed these baseline assumptions to be optimistic, forcing planners to adapt their models accordingly. This legacy complicates governance and heightens risk by creating a system built on shaky foundations. Climate change adds layers of unpredictability through shifts in precipitation patterns, temperature rises, and the timing of snowmelt. These factors alter runoff volumes and evaporative losses in ways that are difficult to forecast precisely. While models predict hotter, drier futures for much of the Southwest, localized surprises like the current record snowpack remind us that variability is the new normal. This forces constant recalibration of water resource plans. Beyond weather, the interactions of natural systems themselves introduce unpredictability. For instance, soil moisture, groundwater levels, and vegetation responses influence how much water ultimately feeds into Lake Mead. Feedback loops within these elements can magnify or dampen the effects of precipitation. Understanding these internal dynamics remains a major scientific challenge, especially when combined with human water usage that increasingly strains the system. Technological and monitoring advancements have improved real-time data collection, offering better situational awareness. Yet, translating this data into long-range actionable predictions is an ongoing struggle. Water managers must operate with incomplete information and make high-stakes decisions under uncertainty. This demands risk management approaches that anticipate a range of scenarios, not just average conditions.
and Nevada have all taken steps to reduce their water demands on Lake Mead.
Beneath the surface, as much as in the rising waters themselves, lies the tension between hope and risk that will define Lake Mead's trajectory for years to come. Looking forward, solutions and challenges. The future of Lake Mead hinges not just on natural cycles, but on the willingness of the basin states to collaborate and innovate in the face of unprecedented challenges. As the 1922 Colorado River Compact approaches its 2026 expiration, stakeholders confront the urgent need to revise agreements with modern realities in mind. This moment offers a critical opportunity to forge a water-sharing framework that accounts for climate variability, population growth, and evolving ecosystem needs, but reaching consensus remains daunting. The emergence of innovative water management strategies is a decisive factor in the long-term solution of the problems associated with water scarcity. The investments in water-saving technologies and infrastructure are directed at prolonging the life of the limited supplies and at the same time reducing waste to the bare minimum. By adopting more efficient practices in agriculture and initiating urban conservation programs, the demand for water is being reduced without compromising the level of productivity or the quality of life. Such actions can enhance resilience. However, they demand a strong commitment and a constant flow of funding to achieve a significant impact. Renewable energy sources are also to be developed along with the reconsideration of the water management plans. The proposal of circumventing Glen Canyon Dam for the purpose of re-establishing the river's natural flow represents a new way of looking at the Colorado Basin, which allows for a balance between propagating power and, at the same time, restoring the environment. Even though this proposal has economic and technical hurdles to overcome, it is still a very optimistic and innovative undertaking to rethink existing infrastructures with the environment in mind. The combination of solar and wind energy, along with hydroelectric power, could not only cater to the energy needs of the region, but can also help in the water conservation effort. The legal and political negotiations are progressing slowly but surely, and they will eventually lead to agreements that are based on the concept of sharing responsibility. It is essential to recognize the interdependence of water sources and competing parties in order to avoid disputes and to have fair distribution. The tribal nations, the agricultural sector, the urban population, and the environment all have their claims on the future water resources, and thus, their opinions must be considered while formulating the new agreements. Trust and transparency will be the cornerstones of these conversations. It is just as important to deal with the environmental effects which the lake's rejuvenation has brought about. Site cleanups, invasive species control, and habitat restoration are interrelated activities that require to be absolute in the trinity of human health, wildlife, and water quality. The efforts may be arduous, but are indispensable for maintaining the ecological balance of Lake Mead, considering its dual function of a water source. The cooperation between federal, state, and local levels, along with the community, is the key factor to achieving such success. Planning has to incorporate the possibility of extreme weather events and droughts from the very beginning. Adaptive management, which is supported by real-time data and adjustable protocols, can make the response to uncertain future conditions more effective. Planning for scenarios that include worst-case droughts or floods can be a way of risk mitigation by proactive actions as opposed to just reacting after the crisis has occurred. Such change in thinking is very essential for the reason of the increasing unpredictability of the climate. Lake Mead's rapid rise has brought hope, but also unveiled hidden dangers and complex challenges. Protecting this vital resource demands bold action, cooperation, and respect for nature's delicate balance. If you found this journey into Lake Mead's evolving story insightful, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all our latest content. Together, we can explore and protect the world's most critical environments.